Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, and I'm honored to serve as First Church's senior minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you're bringing with you today, and we welcome everything your heart longs to set down. We'd like to pay a special welcome to guests who are joining us today. If you're joining us for the first time or visiting us from afar today, why don't you say hello now in the chat and tell us where you're joining from. For visitors who want to know more about First Church, or for longtime friends who just haven't gotten around to joining the congregation, we have our Journey to Membership classes starting this week on Wednesday evening. The 4-week series tells you more about Unitarian Universalism and our church and helps you explore your own spiritual journey. If you've been waiting to take the class, you might want to join us while we're still on Zoom, if that's more convenient for you. I welcome everyone in to our worship service by inviting you to repeat our First Church mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Our opening words this morning are the poem, We Who Remain, by the Reverend Molly Hausch Gordon. The billionaires are making their exit strategy. Bezos and Branson headed for space, forgetting perhaps that they've already filled it with trash. Junk satellites float silently in clacking, cluttered orbit. There is no escaping the mess we've made in our hurry to bring it all under control. No place to outrun the consequence of such plunder. Still, the universe is a symphony we are too small to disrupt, even with our crinkly gum wrappers and melting icebergs. Uranus and Neptune elude our reach yet. And the stars beyond our stars have never dreamed of our little lives, though we stretch towards them, though we breathe their dust. Amid it all, I choose the earth, green and blue and gasping, all its ominous fracking and blithe birdsong. I choose the long shot of repair and the orange and fuchsia sunsets that remain. Mars isn't the kind of place to raise a kid, you know. Bowie tempted us with the stars, but the rocket man longed for home. I choose my children covered in mud and sticky, dripping popsicle, even as I imagine their doom. I choose the wideness of this small planet for them too. So for all but Branson and Bezos, I ask you, what is the strategy for staying tangled up in gravity and fiber optic lines and each other? Maybe it starts in the ragged, earthy beat of our star-spattered breath. Let's go now to our beloved sanctuary to light the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
I'm Reverend Kimberly, and it is my honor to serve as your Minister of Religious Education. The story I have for you today is called Everything is Connected, and it's by Jason Gruhl. Everything is connected, and since you are a part of everything, you are connected to everything. You are connected to a human body, to hands and eyeballs, teeth and toes, elbows, a butt, and even a nose, to a heart and some lungs, and a straightforward looking stomach, and a brain that's so smart there's no peak it can't summit. But you're not just a body. You're bigger than that. You're connected to people, to everybody, to moms and to dads, to sisters and brothers, uncles and cousins, grandfathers, grandmothers. You're connected to friends and to teachers at school, and even to people who think you're not cool. You're connected to people in Denver and Maine, in Paris and Baghdad, to strangers in Spain. You're connected to every human on earth. Wow. And they're connected to you. You're also connected to hedgehogs and cats and dogs and squirrels and birds and rabbits and cows and deer by the herds, monkeys, tarantulas, dolphins, and snakes. Friend, you're connected to every big, small, hairy, slimy, snuggly, scaly, floppy, flappy, bristly, beautiful creature on earth. Even blobfish. Blobfish, you say? Surely not that. They don't look like me, talk like me, or act like me, and they probably stink. But you see, we're connected. We all play a part. In life, we're the same. We're all blobfish at heart. Now, this next part, though bonkers, is true. I'm afraid you're connected to everything humans have made. To toys, to playgrounds, books, to chairs, gardens and medicine, language and prayers, buildings and bicycles, buses, balloons, hammers and paintbrushes, tractors and spoons. But also to chickenpox, bullies and lies, to greed and pollution and trash piled high. You're not just connected to things that you like, things that are comfortable, easy, or nice. As a human, you're part of everythingness, and sometimes it's scary and a big, ugly mess. But the good news is, my dear, is that you are quite powerful, a force that's in everything, timeless and wowful. You're even connected to things you can't see, the invisible world, for at least you and me, to cells, DNA, diseases and death, amoebas and gravity, atoms and breath, to hydrogen, nitrogen, nanobots too. You're connected to them, and they're connected to you. You're connected to happy, you're connected to sad, to the past and the future, to thoughts that you've had, to pharaohs, Ben Franklin, T-Rex, ancient Greece, to love and to poverty, hunger and peace, to Jesus and Buddha, Muhammad and Moses, to spaceships and aliens with noses like hoses. You're connected to all that will be or has been. You're this very moment where all things begin. For you are the sun and the moon and the stars, Venus and Jupiter, Neptune and Mars, comets and galaxies, voids and black holes. You are the universe, perfect and whole. The end.
Thank you for that beautiful story, Reverend Kimberly. Dear ones, I am delighted to share with you the news of a birth in our congregation. Liam James Diliberti was born on June 3rd, 2021 at 8:31 a.m. to parents Gina and Jesse Diliberti. He was 7 pounds, 8 ounces, and 20 inches long at his birth. And Liam and parents are healthy, happy, and doing very well. It is our tradition in this congregation to light our candle of life for a birth, an adoption, or a death among our members. Today, we light our candle of life in honor of Liam James Diliberti. We're going to enter into a time of meditation right now. And before we do so, I just invite you to do whatever it is that you need to center yourself. Maybe that means getting into your body with a big breath and letting that breath carry you into here and now. Or maybe it means feeling the earth beneath you, holding you up and grounding you. Or maybe it means reaching up and feeling the sky above you, connecting to it with the top of your head or the tips of your shoulders. Whatever it means to center yourself, do it now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. May we feel our connection to the world around us, to the breathing trees, the sparkling water, the glittering night sky. May we breathe in gratitude for the interconnected web of life that sustains our lives, and breathe out commitment to sustaining that web with our lives. May we balance. May we align our actions with our values. May we practice right relationship with all of life. May we be emboldened by faith that we are part of a larger force of love working together for the fair, beautiful, balanced future of our collective dreams. May it be so, and amen.
Last fall in 2020, I found myself on Zoom every day teaching sixth graders science and social studies. We were on Zoom together because of the global pandemic, and I knew coming into the school year that some of my students had family members who had died in the early days of COVID. In sixth grade at our school, the science curriculum is about ecosystems, biodiversity, and climate change. For students already facing collective trauma, part of my job was to show them video after video of species on the brink of extinction and help them understand how humans created this catastrophe too. I could see from our Zoom calls that the kids were not all right. And I couldn't face those 11-year-olds. I couldn't look into the eyes of the few students who kept their cameras on faithfully day after day. I couldn't respond to all the chats of the kids with their cameras off who just kept writing, "Yep, humans suck," without doing something to change my behavior related to the climate crisis. The one thing I seemed to be able to do with integrity connected to global climate change was to think about altering my diet. As the students and I explored interactive websites explaining how overfishing was destroying marine ecosystems, as we read about methane emissions from cattle and dairy farming creating greenhouse gases, I stopped wanting to eat fish. I stopped wanting to consume dairy. When a student asked me about the COVID outbreaks in meatpacking plants, I couldn't stomach pork or even chicken. I decided to experiment with a whole foods, plant-based diet. I didn't even talk with my husband about it at first. I was embarrassed by my audacity to think I, as an individual, could in any way help with the climate crisis at all. But at least I could get up in the morning and teach without feeling like just another adult who was ignoring how my actions impact the next generation's future. I don't purport to think that staying away from meat and dairy is the best choice for all humans. I know plenty of meat and dairy lovers, many of them at our church, who make more conscious food choices than I do, who have been thinking globally and acting locally for years. But I also know the results of my experiment with plant-based eating have been joyfully surprising. I had no idea when I started to eat plant-based food that my mood would improve so much, or my sleep would be regulated. While no one else in my family has gone plant-based, we're all enjoying more vegetables now. And the act of planning out meals and slowing down to prepare them has become a meditation of sorts. Taking time to prioritize nourishing food choices that are more sustainable to the planet has helped me connect with myself as a human being, rather than as an overachieving employee or a busy mom or whatever else society says I should be. In the last year, I've become healthier. My family has too. And I have also found a larger community of folks who eat this way for a variety of reasons. And now I see myself as part of a collective, caring human effort. I don't have naive hope that my actions alone will have a profound impact on the planet, or that we will globally get our act together to make the kinds of changes needed to avoid more mass extinctions or prevent rising sea levels. But I do have a less cynical response to any "humans suck" comments I hear. One of our UU principles is to affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. For me, acknowledging my consumption of the natural world and honoring my relationship to my body as part of our planet's fragile ecosystem has been a good step in that direction.
Wow, thank you, Nick and Elizabeth. That was just gorgeous. When I was the ministerial intern at Unity Church Unitarian, I went with their youth group on their annual journey to Boston, Massachusetts. While we were there, we went to Plymouth Patuxet, an interactive museum of the Plymouth colony and a native Patuxet village in the 1600s. The museum includes a recreation of the English colony, as well as a Wampanoag village staffed by Indigenous people who share the history and the practices of the Wampanoag people. There were signs everywhere posted explaining various practices of the 17th century life. After reading one of these signs about Wampanoag harvest ceremonies, I asked one of the Indigenous staff members of the museum a question about how the ceremony worked. She asked me to clarify what I meant, and I stumbled a little bit trying to get at what I was asking. How did Indigenous rituals affect the weather or the crops? I was simultaneously feeling very foolish in terms of not knowing how to articulate my question, and also very proud of myself for believing the rituals could work, knowing that most 21st century white Americans would not believe that. So while I bumbled through my awkward mix of shame and pride, the Indigenous museum staff member asked me with some clear frustration, "What do you mean affect the weather?" Well, I didn't really know what I meant because I didn't understand how the ceremony worked, and I stumbled some more and gave a stereotype of wanting rain to come and therefore having a ceremony so the rain would come. This patient staff member shook her head and told me that it does not work like that. In Wampanoag ceremony, she said, you don't ask the weather to do what you want it to do. You cooperate with the weather. You partner with it. You ask the weather and the crops and the land what it is that they need, what they want you to do, and then you do that. Her response felt like someone shining a light through the cracks of my understanding. In the moment, I was embarrassed because I clearly didn't get it. I felt ashamed of my arrogant and completely off-base question. But in the years since then, I've returned to that conversation again and again to remember the hidden depth of my sense of ownership over nature and how I need to continuously work to reorient my perspective back to right relationship with the web of life. I have a strong relationship with nature. I talk to trees. I nurture plants. I am rocked to rest by our lake. I honor non-human beings as part of my spiritual practice. And that conversation showed me that my relationship is still run through with assumptions of mastery. Despite my spiritual practice of honoring the earth, the mastery perspective continues to live inside me. I mean, I was raised in a culture that looked at trees and saw lumber, looked at lakes and saw drinking water, looked at animals and saw food. When I am out of practice, that perspective arises and dominates my consciousness, sometimes without me even realizing it. Environmental and Indigenous leader Winona LaDuke wrote, Indigenous peoples believe fundamentally in a state of balance. Most Indigenous ceremonies, if you look to their essence, are about the restoration of balance. They are a reaffirmation of our relationship to creation. That is our intent, to restore and then to retain balance and honor our part in creation. Balance, restoring balance. Our American society is deeply, painfully out of balance. Human beings writ large, particularly the wealthiest members of the wealthiest countries of the world, are consuming too much, overfishing, overeating, raising entire forests for lumber, and using so much energy that we are changing the climate irrevocably. Indeed, we are fast approaching the point of no return on climate change. The August 2021 International Panel on Climate Change report says that we have about 10 years to drastically reduce our carbon emissions if we want to stay below a 1.5 degrees Celsius global temperature increase. Going above 1.5 degrees Celsius would be extremely dangerous to human life and many other types of species here on Earth. The good news is that there are technical solutions to climate change. In April of 2021, Carbon Tracker released a report on the current state of solar and wind energy with the very hopeful title, "The Sky's the Limit. Solar and wind energy potential is as much as 100 times demand." According to the report, half of that energy potential is economically viable right now, and almost all of it will be viable by the end of this decade. The report says, quote, "The technical and economic barriers have been crossed, and the only impediment to change is political." The bad news is that all of the solutions to climate change will require individual and collective sacrifice. Even if we move from carbon-based fuel sources to renewable energy, we will still need to change the way we live, from the way we eat to the way we shop to the way we use energy. Wealthy countries and wealthy people within them will need to consume less. But this is a collective problem. It's not an individual one, and it requires collective solutions. The climate is the ultimate commons, which means human beings will need an unprecedented level of collective understanding and collaborative action to prevent disaster. Next month, at the November gathering of the parties to the International Climate Change Treaty, countries are going to consider various possible routes to reducing our global carbon emissions and thereby keeping overall temperature rise below that 1.5 degrees Celsius. Every pathway there will involve enormous systemic changes in our energy economies and drastic reductions in our energy use. All of the countries will need to agree to those changes at the international level, and then they'll need to come home and make the changes real at the national level. Everyone will have to decide together that our collective interest, our collective survival is more important than other concerns. This makes climate change a spiritual problem, because responding to it requires human beings to know that we are inextricably connected to every other being in the world, and that all of our lives are inherently valuable. Our first and seventh principle in Unitarian Universalism recognizes this. The first principle recognizes the inherent worth of every human being, and the seventh recognizes that we are interconnected with one another and to all of existence. Our lives are tied to one another through our very breath, as we are learning so clearly through COVID, but also through every living system we have. We're also tied to the rest of the world. Our breath is tied to the trees. Our bodies are tied to the earth. Our life is tied to the water. We are this earth, and she is us. And in this moment in history, our human consciousness has the power to enact life or death for billions of beings. In an interview with Rebecca Solnit, Hoda Baraka, who is 350.org's global communications director, said, "In a world being driven by fear, we are constantly being pitted against the very things that make this world livable. Whether it's people being pitted against each other, even though there is no life without human connection, love, and empathy, or fear, pitting us against the very planet that sustains us, even though there is no life on a dead planet. This is why fighting against climate change is connected to fighting against hatred. A world that thrives is one where both people and planet are seen for their inextricable value and connectedness. These are not separate struggles, my friends. They are connected to one another and to the mindset of understanding inextricable interconnection and inherent worth. I'm not going to lie to you. To avert climate disaster now is impractical, maybe even improbable, but it is not impossible. The continuing climate optimism among activists comes close to what I would call faith. Faith in the larger power of love. Faith in the capacity of humanity to choose life over death. Faith in the forces of mystery beyond our knowing to move us in ways unpredictable and profound. Those keeping the faith in the shadow of climate apocalypse are imagining a future that is wildly impractical because that is what is necessary to survive. The organizer and author, Adrienne Marie Brown, argues that, quote, all organizing is science fiction. We are shaping the future we long for and have not yet experienced. She writes, we are in an imagination battle. Yes. Yes, this is a battle of the imagination, of vision. It is also a battle of faith, of theology, and of deep spiritual practice. We are in a spiritual battle for the life of the planet as we know it, and for the lives of our children and our grandchildren. In order to win, we must continue to believe in the possibility of a different future, despite its improbability. We must articulate a theology of irrevocable interconnectedness with one another and all of life. And we must engage in collective action for collective liberation. Doing this daily against cruelty, against pessimism, despair, against temptation requires deep spiritual practice. practices that return us to our values, practices that help us align and realign our actions with those values, practices of faith in forces larger than ourselves to do the same. What might spiritual practices of right relationship with the world look like for you? Where is your need greatest? Is it in the category of faith? Is it in theology? Is it in practice? Do you need a boost in belief, an antidote to despair? Do you need to return to the power of the imagination and invest in vision for a dose of hope? Or do you need to remember or perhaps re-articulate your values? Do you need to work out how human and non-human life are interrelated, dependent, and inextricable from one another? Are you harboring any sense of dominance or a mastery over the world? Or perhaps, do you need to spend some time on alignment? Are your daily life practices in line with right relationship? Where could you realign daily practice in ways that serve your health and the health of the web of all being? The nonprofit organization EcoHealthNet works to repair damaged ecosystems and the damaged relationship between human beings and ecosystems. It connects human health with environmental health, recognizing that environmental destruction harms human health and repair helps restore it. One of the ecosystems they're working to repair is in Canada, in Alberta's Watertown Lakes National Preserve. There, an invasive species of aspen brought over by European colonizers has overrun plants and animals native to the area. Additionally, over time, people have suppressed lightning fires because they thought those fires were destructive, when lightning fires helped a natural cycle of renewal that would have enabled native plants to return. The ecosystem repair project is now mimicking the lightning strike fires to give the area more space for regeneration. They plant native species in the space left by small, controlled fires and help the ecosystem recover and balance itself. Even more than that, Parks Canada and First Nations are collaborating with each other to share restoration techniques and heal the land with human diversity as well as biodiversity. We are in relationship with the entire world. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do it all, that you have to fix the entire world. If you are feeling overwhelmed by this collective problem, try to remember that it is the nature of the problem itself that it cannot be fixed by individual action. The collective problem's gift is its invitation to collaboration. It means that you must put your faith not just in the work your own life can do, but also in the faith that millions of others are doing the same. This problem is calling us into unprecedented levels of collaborative vision. It is calling us to create that which has never been before. Do not despair. my dear ones. There are more mysteries at work than we will ever know. Some of them are hidden in the loved ones near you now. Faith is alive in your human hands. It is alive in the love you have for your children. It is alive in the glittering essence that travels among us. It is also alive in the mystery that is beyond, all comprehending, that openness you might call science fiction or imagination or vision or love or God. That larger force has been active in dramatic upheavals throughout the history of time. As we know so well right now, any moment might experience drastic change beyond anything we might ever have imagined. It is our job to partner with that change, to put the energy of our minds and our bodies into the vision of a better world, and to be one small part of a much larger web, healing itself. May you be part of healing today, dear ones. I love you. May it be so, and amen.
Have you spent a lifetime looking to find a miracle or wonder that could change your mind? You ain't found no reason yet to believe, but maybe hope's got something yet left up her sleeve. Something beautiful, something natural, ordinary magic. Amazing that we have this chance to be here, to let our love vanish fear, and let our days overfill with ordinary magic. Have you felt the sunshine on your face? Have you heard the bird's version of Amazing Grace? Have you stood up on a mountain and tried to number the stars? Did you know that perfection is who you truly are? You're always magical, always beautiful, ordinary magic. It's amazing that we have this chance to be here, to let our love banish fear, to let our days overfill with ordinary magic. Like wind chimes, a child's song, the whisper of wind in the leaves, the moonlight, the wide open arms of a sycamore tree. That's just ordinary magic. It's amazing that we have this
Thank you to Leah for that beautiful song. And thank you all so much for your generosity. As you know, pledges are the core of our congregation's spiritual practice of generosity. We're also grateful for additional gifts to support our ministry, and we thank the folks out there who are appreciating this online ministry and are supporting it by texting either 73256 with the message give numeral 2 UU, or who are giving on our website at bit.ly/UU ways to give. Your gifts help us continue to provide this ministry. We also share the plate with an organization each month. In October, our Share the Plate partner is the United Nations Association of Greater Milwaukee, which is dedicated to educating, inspiring, and mobilizing citizens of southeastern Wisconsin to support the vital work of the United Nations through advocacy, education, programs, and fundraising. You can give to our Share the Plate partner through that same webpage at bit.ly/UU ways to give. You can see all these options to donate on your screen now, and they'll also live on in our YouTube comment section after the video of this worship is over. So thank you so much for giving either right now or making a point to come back and give later. Your support keeps us and our community partners going. Thank you so much. Our closing words today are the poem The Turning by Rowan Mangan. 1. My sweet darlings, how did you ever stay afloat for so long and not suspect you were built to breathe underwater? Why did you never toss thoughts around in 3 dimensions, never loose them like dragonflies into the deep sky? How could you fear falling? Didn't you see the spiders stringing safety nets across the earth every day just in case? 2. Instead, you tore at this world, and I watched. I felt the air's grim thickening, saw the waters rise. You were huddled at the precipice, at the very brink, my loves, and still bellowing for more. What crucial inspiration turned you at last? I'll never know what broke over you and with what calamity or clamor or grace, but when you knelt as one, it was a mighty sight. You placed your hunger on the ground and left it to lie among the gadgetry of old logics beside the corpses of cruelty and greed. You were exquisite to me then, long-legged and bright-eyed, built of gravel and stardust. Oh, my sweet, funny loves, my unfurling galaxy, my pebble scatter of promises. 3. And so we came to the age of the great unbuilding when everyone's name is stillness. Here, day gathers you into the deep magic of play. Here, night powders you with the ancient magic of rest. It's a time of dragonflies. So be soft in your hearts, dear hearts, for we are all cast shining and short-lived into the sky, and allow your face to take the shape of wonder when your children ask again to hear the tale of the time you almost broke the world. Blessed be, and amen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will we'll get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah.